Okay, that's fine. Okay, well, good afternoon and welcome to our next episode of the Digital Diaries. This is a first. We're about to do an interview with two people. Don't worry for anyone that's any of the social distancing police out there. They are both actually married couple, live together and are both teachers in exactly the same school. So this is quite a unique situation, but really good to catch up in a kind of different way. So good afternoon to Deirdre and to Dougie.
Hello there.
Hello.
So thank you for joining us. Yeah, we're good. I'm good, thank you. Really excited about this one because I think on a number of different levels, this is our first sort of, if you like, West Coast interview, because it's all been quite Inverness-centric so far. And also, I think possibly about our first kind of Gaelic-related interview, and definitely our first married couple interview. Although I did suggest to my own wife, who's a teacher, that we could have done one, and I was actually, I can't repeat what she said. So, first question, really, I think, if you don't mind just sort of introducing yourselves and just sort of give a bit of context for who you are in terms of where you work and how that kind of, well, maybe we'll tease out the relationship as we go through it, but maybe introduction first would be good.
Do you want to go first?
I'll let the boss go first.
Okay, so I am actually the primary and nursery deputy head for the cluster down in the Mallock 3 to 18 cluster. So I am between a number of schools. We've got Arisig Nursery and Primary, Lady Lovett Primary School, Mallock nurseries and primaries, which include the English medium and the Gaelic medium streams in both, and also Inverie Primary School, so which is, I think, arguably the remotest primary school in the area. We have to access by boat. So yeah.
I didn't actually realise that. Wow.
Yeah. Well, you can get in. You can walk in over a couple of days from Glenfinnan, but it's all over the mountains and things like that. And I can safely say I've never done that.
That's what I do every time I go. Every single time.
So yeah, I am doing all the schools down here. So, and have been 2 years in this post.
Coming up for 2 years.
Coming up for 2 years in this post.
Yep.
Dougie?
I just kind of pale into insignificance, really, in every way here, really. Is it? Well, no, I'm Gaelic medium teacher for the upper Gaelic medium class, the P5 to 7 class in Mallock Primary. I've also got a 0.2 principal teacher cluster responsibility as well, and that's been since the end of last year, December it was, and I suppose the main focus so far has been for digital
thankfully
support for all the schools and nurseries locally as well.
Wow. So that's a huge, I mean, just between the two of you, that's quite a responsibility. And I suppose, we are going to talk about the digital focus, and that I guess is this is our first gate crasher, someone trying to get into this meet. It is a Liz McIntosh that we know, and as entertaining as that would be, I'm not going to, that's very weird. Not sure, maybe she was so excited about this thought of seeing it that she was desperate to join. So in terms of how that works in reality, I suppose for you, Deirdre, I've done a cluster head before with 2 schools, but how often do you visit these schools? Obviously not at the moment, but normal times.
Normally, so the way I work it, really you're allocated 0.5 management time for each nursery and primary school. So the way it roughly works out, but Malic's a kind of tricky one. It's by far the biggest school in the group, and then because it's got the 2 streams, but it is counted as one entity sort of thing. So I normally do a day to a day and a half in Addisaig Primary School, and a half day in Lady Lovett, and then a day a week in Malig primaries and nurseries, and then I do 1 day a week I go over to Inverness, because but with catching the ferries, it's not like every half hour there's a ferry running. I catch a ferry in the morning and come back later in the day. And then I've got like class committed. Last year I was class committed. I actually was taking the Gaelic medium 1 to 3s last year on 1 day a week. This year my class commitment has actually been, I've been without a teacher in Inverness, so I've been quite often covering with a day's teaching there. So yeah, that's how it kind of pans out.
So so thinking about the digital picture, do you have, I suppose almost the learning and teaching part is a lot of it management rather than leadership. Are you sort of going to these schools almost to provide, I suppose, pastoral support?
That's a really big part, and I think the connecting people up and everything else, and digital has just really actually been vital within that role, in terms of informal and formally, because things like, trying to do collegiate sessions with your staff. We've got staff and the ones in Addisaig, Lady Lovett and Malig have been willing to rotate round the schools. But obviously for Inverness, they can't come over and join a collegiate session, but they are part of our group. And also we've got connections and link-ups with the Small Isles head teachers and staff there. So being able to use Google Hangouts, it was Google Hangouts that we were using previously, so that they could be part of the staff meeting. And then when we broke into little groups, if they were like looking at first level, early level, second level, so that they could be part of it, the computer would go, and so the person was there and still being part of that. And also bring this together across the schools. We use the sort of more informal chat channels, through like Facebook groups and things like that. And also I can be there and supporting and encouraging through the use. All our schools are now engaged in using Dojo to engage with the families and the kids with their portfolios and things like that. So it means that I can be in, even if I've not been there since the week before in that school, I can still be going in and saying, oh, that's fantastic work. I really loved what you were doing here. I look forward to talking to you about this when we're next there. So it's such a powerful part of what we can do. And that's just obviously escalated during this time sort of thing.
So that's good to know that, because a lot of these discussions are talking about what's happened during the lockdown. But actually, from what it sounds like, you've been making use of that pre-lockdown. So I guess, Dougie, a question for you would be, and obviously you've given us some support already in terms of the digital stuff that we've been doing across the authority. So how would you sort of describe the digital skills that you've got personally? And I suppose, how have you developed those? Has that been self-taught? Have you attended training? What has kind of got you to this point where you have got this expertise and knowledge?
I suppose I have no formal training in terms of digital stuff whatsoever. I think probably best to describe myself as like a chancer in terms of, I suppose it kind of going back kind of historically, before I went into teaching, I worked for Fashion and Gale. I was involved in drama. I worked for Fashion and Gale for something like 13 years or something like that, and it was very much a case of getting to learn on the job in terms of digital capabilities, but also dabble a fair bit with, or certainly used to dabble a fair bit with photography. So it was a case of getting a skill set for that, a skill set for my work at Fashion and Gale as well. And really, I suppose that the way that I approach anything digitally is, if you set yourself a goal, you will find your way there. It might be a really kind of an idiosyncratic way to do it, and you might end up, going around circles a few times, but you will get there. And that's going to set me in fairly good stead for quite a lot of things, because as you know, in terms of the digital world and what's out there, it's anything is kind of possible. if you can put your mind to it, and also the skills are infinitely transferable.
Yeah,
so whether you're working on something like Photoshop or Lightroom, or something like that, there are going to there is going to be something you're going to be able to take from that to Google Suite, for example. In some way, there's always something maybe at the back of your mind that you think, right, I remember I problem solved that in a totally different program with a totally different application, but you'll find some kind of wee nugget in there that might help you with something else. But kind of what we're saying there is the kind of upskilling that has gone on over the last 10 weeks or something like that has been huge, and I know that's been quite a lot of the chat with other people, both formally and informally, but I'm really noticing it myself at the moment.
So I guess the question would be, and this is for both of you, is that what has been probably the single biggest advantage that digital learning has given you in your different positions? What's that kind of moment that you've thought, well, wow, thank goodness for the digital opportunities? Is there a standout moment, or is it actually more kind of embedded?
I think it's and again, it's kind of in some ways it's getting more and more challenging to talk about what life was like for this current period, but it's also really useful to reflect back to kind of pre-lockdown times. And I know it's strange, we are starting to almost talk about it was like the 18th century or something like that. Reflect on what was there before, but also think about the future and think about what we're going to take out of this period and how our practice will change. And it's not just necessarily our classroom practice. It's it's how life will change. But getting back to your question there, the kind of the way that I approached the use of digital resources in the classroom, it was we're talking about embedding there, but it's kind of embedding in the same way that a jotter and a pencil is kind of embedded into your daily practice anyway. It's a Chromebook or an iPad or whatever you might have at your disposal. You get disposable. I think they actually had disposable mobile phones in Japan for a while. And all it had was a cardboard phone with a speaker, some kind of keypad and a screen, and that kind of thing. You'd buy it for $5 or whatever, and then you'd bin it at the end. But anyway,
it might explain why we've got 28,000 Chromebooks. We've got 28,000 disposable Chromebooks.
But yeah, it's that kind of thing about using it appropriately. So the thing about having a pencil, jot, or textbook, that's appropriate for one context. Your Chromebook is absolutely appropriate for other things.
As Darren said yesterday, it really, what you're saying, and it's using it what's appropriate when it's appropriate and everything else. And that is, that was something I really took away from listening to Darren's interview as well.
It was quite nice that I think I said in the interview that with Darren, you'd expect a computer science teacher to say, no, all the time, get it on, use it constantly. That's a really powerful message. I was going to say, so in terms of, you've got the quirk also of the Gaelic part, and I kind of feel that the way things are set up with the digital tools, particularly with G Suite and some of the tools, some of them can be adapted to be used when teaching Gaelic, but actually some of them you're almost having to make fit the situation that you're using them in. Is that fair to say? Do you think Gaelic has been neglected in terms of digital provision? No, I don't mean by Highland Council, I just mean generally, because it doesn't appear to be, certainly not equitable, is it? In terms of, I want to use this resource, I can just convert it, or I can use it in a kind of Gaelic friendly way.
I think, it's been a thing that in Gaelic medium education and I suppose to some extent, and when you're talking about, an L2 or L3, language teaching full stop, it's like, different things are resourced in different ways very much. But as where you can't, obviously, like we're talking here about, the things that are available in the kind of mainstream world, for want of a better phrase, here, that you can, as you say, you can just, just basically just lift them off the shelf and bang, you go. I think that one of the almost advantages in the challenges within resourcing in Gaelic medium education is that because quite often you're creating things yourself, you're tailoring them very much to the needs of your pupils, or your pupils, or if you're sharing your resources, you kind of get a feeling for a kind of generally where children might be, where specific needs are. So by plugging the gaps yourself, you're actually tailoring to needs. So for example, in the kind of context of Scotland, the curriculum for education, very often we'll be using, say, for example, just off the top of my head here, a Pri-Med maths book or something like that. And quite often, what we'll find is, it maybe doesn't quite fit perfectly with the CFE, that kind of thing. But whereas in Gaelic medium education, because you are quite often producing your own things, you can, if so minded, make it bang on. There's the digital resources that have come out in terms of Gaelic over the last few years have, it's really rocketed over the last few years, and there is some really good stuff coming out. For example, the online reading platform Giglets. It's been around for 2 or 3 years now, but they're
working with teachers and practitioners. You've been working, talking with the people there.
Their library stuff that is available for the Gaelic medium sector is constantly increasing, and it's great. Also Starlan, the kind of national body for production of materials, they're providing more and more digital stuff themselves, and also there's other organisations here and there as well, just over in Skye, Lassoch, they've got an awful lot of stuff available online themselves, printables, and also
online stories and animations and things like that
stuff as well.
But I'm thinking in hearing that, when you're looking for a particular digital tool, are you almost thinking or looking for something that's perhaps more the vehicle to deliver it? I'm thinking things like Soundtrap, things like Book Creator, that actually allow you to use those tools, because they're actually kind of almost neutral in the sense they're not, although perhaps they're done in English, there is very much the option to actually personalize it.
Yeah, definitely. And what I would jump in, yes, there is negatives and things like that, and you discussed that a bit. But what I would say also, that the digital, in terms of the support and being able to work with the children, without the platforms we've got available just now, and it means that our teachers here, our children who are the wee tooties that are at the absolute immersion point, are still getting daily, they're hearing Gaelic, they're talking in Gaelic with their teachers. The teachers are able to create wee videos to support the parents, so that the parents aren't trying to give the instructions in English and the kids are like, oh, I've got to complete this in Gaelic. They can listen to their teacher, watch their teacher, and the whole thing's modelled through. There's a lot of innovation, and I think for contact, again, because the Gaelic medium units and things can be quite small numbers of staff, it also allows, with the platforms like the Gaelic staff, Gaelic medium staff room on Facebook and things like that, allows for staff to be getting together and supporting each other in that way. So there is a lot. One of our other teachers, one of the other Gaelic medium teachers, is actually Classroom Here and Nor on Facebook, and a lot of children in Gaelic medium across Scotland are jumping in and being supported, because that is a Gaelic speaking household and everything else, and they're just sharing just what they are doing, just every day, what they are doing. But it's allowing people, and without tools like that, some children may well have been really struggling throughout this time, apart from TV programs, which are fantastic, and they are up in the ante in terms of that, and having our wee girls enjoying some of the Gaelic learning programs, for numeracy and things like that. online, but it's this actual interaction back and forth and being able to do it is phenomenal.
Yeah.
So do you think it's changed? Oh, sorry, Dougie, you go.
No, I just going to say, you were talking there about, you used the example of Soundtrap and whatever else there as the medium of dissemination of kind of thing. So there, that's actually something I hadn't really thought about, whether or not the interface is in Gaelic or not. I'm not sure it's all that crucial. There's you can get your Google interface in Gaelic if you want, if you like, things like Soundtrap and whatnot. I think children have got more things to be focusing on in terms of producing fantastic sounds or whatever than what the language is there. But of course, you'd never just throw something like that at the children and let them get on with it. So that's the whole thing about certainly the older Gaelic medium experience, is that it's that personal dialogue with the children over the tool that they are using. So the instruction, the saying, right, let's see if we import this beat in or whatever, that kind of thing. That is always going to be delivered in Gaelic, and then it's up to the children to quite often experiment themselves. So,
that's going to say that's. I mean, it's really interesting to see cause I'm almost thinking in my head here. And I suppose the question we've asked ourselves about the CPD training is: are we ever going to go back to the old model? And I don't think we ever will. And I actually wonder, within Gaelic medium delivery, has this opened up? Perhaps not with yourselves necessarily, because I think you already saw the value. But I'm wondering if there are Gaelic medium teachers out there who perhaps this has opened their eyes to, in terms of capabilities of, I suppose even just the sharing of practice, like you were saying, not having to travel to Inverness for training for CPD sessions.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think we've got the Gaelic, but we've also got the rurality of where we are living, and don't get me wrong, it's great to sometimes get away and get a shopping trip to Inverness and things like that. But I would never go to the shops. But traveling 3.5 hours to then be there for the courses, and of course sometimes it is better in person. But sometimes you're going for a brilliant course. It's maybe only going to be 3 hours, but you're actually 9-10 hours of the day is gone. And it's not knocking what's available. But because the quality, a few years back, I remember trying through Glow and things like that, trying to attend. It was a Dylan Williams thing. And I just had to give up. And it was actually soul destroying because I was so enthusiastic and I was really, I'd signed up for this for a Scotland-wide thing. But I think now we're seeing, yes, there's still been glitches, and we'll all hold our hands up. There's been some days that we probably all have come away and said, that was really ropey today. Reception was ropey. The internet kept coming and going. But I think we're on more solid ground, and being able to share screens and actually have people interacting, so you still feel that you're part of a group through these things. We can do remotely now.
Definitely.
So in terms of, I was going to say, in terms of innovation, and you used that word earlier, Deirdre. Is there anything that you want to share with us that would be a really good example of how you have used digital tools to enhance, I suppose, either, teaching generally or Gaelic teaching, or, this is a good chance to share what perhaps you might have to showcase almost.
Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'm not logged into my own account here, so but I've pinged a couple of things over to Deirdre just a wee while ago. I've dabbled with Adobe Spark quite a lot over the last 2 or 3 years, and the tool itself. I've seen it's actually evolved a little bit over the last wee while, but it's a very, very powerful tool. Now, just in case anyone's not sure what it does exactly, it's a free Adobe service. You can pay for a premium enhancement if you like, which has a few extra wee bells and whistles here and there, but you can produce absolutely fantastic graphics, very professional looking, almost like kind of at the touch of a button. You can produce what are effectively websites, kind of presentation format, or you can provide a kind of film strip video format, and it's absolutely brilliant. I think one of the things about you could say about so many facets about education anyway. But if you are getting the children to produce something, I think more and more we should be looking at ways to make that relevant to children in terms of what they might do in the future.
Yeah.
And obviously we talk about this kind of thing all the time in terms of tools for the future and
transferable skills,
and that kind of thing. But I think there are certain digital applications. Now you mentioned SoundCloud. And I was talking about transferable skills earlier on. Not Soundtrap. Sorry,
Soundtrap. Yeah.
Soundtrap, sorry, you're talking about Soundtrap there. The transferable skills from that are absolutely huge. But if you're getting the children to produce something, if you can get them to produce something that is visually very professional looking, is relevant, such as a website or whatever, that it's win-win. So just as a couple of examples, hopefully I'll just get them up on the screen first, just a wee second. Just wait a wee second. Deirdre, talk about something for a second, will you?
So yeah, he's going to, I think, show not examples of children's works, but sort of examples that he created for using with the class.
Yeah, but it's the same principle.
Yeah.
We see
Chrome tab.
Yes, here. You'd think I'd never seen meat before.
You're nervous.
Of course I'm nervous.
There we go. Do you know, it's funny because that expression, share your screen, is something I've never used before lockdown. And now I think it's probably behind unprecedented, it's probably the most commonly used expression in my life.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Or it's the way that we're treating our kind of verbs and adjectives. Well,
we're digitalizing it all. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like it's like as people talked about years ago. It's like I'm going to text you and things like that. Now, it's like the way that we use like Hangout and Meet and things like that. It's all kind of changing that kind of thing.
Yeah. Let's meet.
Just up on the screen just now. Yes. Just very simple example of just the kind of the kind of professionalism that you could get very easily. Now that's the work of just a minute or so, and so it's we're moving away from something maybe done in Word, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with Word or Docs from what it can do. We're just taking it up that little level. Now the impact on children to be able to produce something that looks as good as that. It's huge, and
that's just the free version.
Yeah. And that's, there's the paid version of Spark. There's collaborative opportunities within that as well. So anyway.
Yeah. And I'll come out of this just now. I'll stop that. And I'm going to take a slightly put the mummy hat on as such, and I talked a little bit about sort of collaboration and also the opportunities for collegiality, but also between homes and school. And there's various platforms. A lot of schools are using Seesaw and that. We are still using Dojo, and we've got our own wee girl who's a primary one in the Gaelic medium class in the school, and I'm just going to share some examples of how it's working both ways, for the younger ones in engaging the parents, and also for us to engage and share with the school. Yeah. So
just while I get that open, just from the point of Class Dojo, that's now probably getting on about 3.5-4 years. We've had Class Dojo certainly in Malloy Primary, and the other schools were using it at the same time. But what I think the interaction through Class Dojo did, it created a lot of confidence on the part of the parents in terms of digital stuff. We had a lot of discussions about things.
Yeah.
A while back about it, but parents are very much on board with what we are doing, and I wouldn't be surprised if we would maybe trace some of that back to the early days with Dojo.
Upskilling them and increasing their confidence digitally. Even just digital communication itself is huge.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think the wonderful thing is you can capture moments and share that with them. So although she's not doing her reading every day with our teacher, we've got
There was more
I will make the point with that I was making her read the teacher's page out of Story World. One, but she did very well with sounding out her words there.
But even being able to actually, presumably, listen back to herself and almost reflect on how that actually sounded. I mean, that's such a powerful tool for in this kind of language where you're trying to make it. You know, you're trying to sound or speak correctly, if you like.
No, it's certainly been a really powerful tool there, and she's really, really proud, and she loves to share it. Even before, she loved to share it, like when she was visiting her grandparents and things like that. And also, I think, you know, the fact that they can do the recordings like that, they can also every platform is upgrading with everything that's going on in the world, and even recording wee things. It's a lot easier when you put a post on. If there's a picture, we can record her talking about what the picture is. So it's providing so many opportunities. And I think that to me has been key and paramount, because otherwise we could be feeling quite detached from our schools and teachers and the children. And with my role in management, to know that I'm still there. And, you know, we've talked about other ones and shared other things. You know, we're sharing across the cluster using, you know, the tools online for assembly, book creator to gather our achievements and celebrate what's going on across the cluster every week. And it's fantastic. And it's something the parents can always have there to look back on with these links.
And that's a really important part, isn't it? The fact that it's a legacy that you left behind, and it's not a legacy that will disappear when we go back. No. I must also say, Dougie, that Adobe Spark, you actually kind of sparked my interest in that by when you mentioned it at the session that I was at Cool Primary Women, did that drop-in session. And yeah, I have to say, I think it's really good. It's really powerful. I like the fact that I think for children to be able to see with a little bit of effort and a little bit of work that they can produce what looks like professional graphic material. It's like Google Sites is the same. Within 3 or 4 minutes, you can turn a Google site into what looks like a professional website. Yeah. And that's so powerful for children because they want to believe the credibility. Yeah. I think days have gone where you would say, let's pretend to, you know, make a website that actually doesn't look like a website, because they can see right through that. And I think you're right. And I think, you know, asking, you know, someone to record themselves speaking, if they can't hear it back and they can't actually see it being shared, they're almost thinking, what's the point? What's the purpose of it?
You know, the kids are so good with the QR codes, like the websites with your class, they promoted the local area, which might be very, very valuable for the businesses, you know, when we're going back and when we come out of lockdown, and people coming into the school could just scan the QR code and it took them to the kids' websites they'd produced for different things in the local area. And that was nice for visitors to the school to be able, you know, that way.
What I've seen quite a lot of over the last few months or last year or so is, you know, it's the ability of children to choose their medium, you know, independently, and that's a fantastic thing. You know, it's a thing that we are encouraging, but it's, you know, for a child to maybe say, I'll maybe just do that in Google Slides, you know, as opposed to you know their absolute go-to, which, you know, previously could have been Docs or something like that.
That's really interesting, because I did an interview this morning with another teacher that on the Digital Diaries, Arlene, that's from Davia, and we talked about embedding digital learning and what it looked like, and she said almost exactly the same thing, that actually she's got children now who she can give the learning opportunity to, and they'll decide which platform suits that particular opportunity. Unfortunately, we're out of time. This has been really fascinating, and I really, really hope that people that are watching it, the purpose of this is to try and make it relatable to as many different people. And I think that, you know, apart from the fact, obviously, you're in a unique situation shared by me, in living with a fellow educator, although I do take my hat off to you being able to work in the same school, because I think if I was in your situation, there'll only be one of us here right now, and it wouldn't be me. But I think that the Gaelic component to it is really, really interesting. And I just have to say a big thank you. And I do say this at the end of most of these sessions, just for your contributions, both either to the digital drop-ins or
thank you. It's been great so much. Every day we learn when we come in. Yeah.
So
It's been great.
Thanks, Robert. And
no,
thanks for your support.
not in the slightest. Long may it continue. And thank you so much. And as I say, hopefully, if you've enjoyed this session, hopefully you'll tune to the next one for our next Digital Diaries.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Cheerio.
Cheers.
Bye.